Chapter 1. The Message That Was Never Meant to Be Sent. At 2:17 a.m., the city was quiet in the way that only poverty understands. No traffic. No laughter. Just the hum of a broken streetlight outside Nia Carter's apartment window and the slow, aching pressure in her lower back that reminded her she was 7 months pregnant and completely alone. Nia sat on the edge of her narrow bed, phone glowing in her hand, thumb hovering as if the wrong movement could shatter what little stability she had left. The apartment was silent except for the drip of the kitchen faucet she couldn't afford to fix and the distant sound of sirens that had become Soul's lullaby. She had been staring at the blank note for 20 minutes. The title mocked her from the top of the screen, Before I Die. Her bucket list wasn't glamorous. It wasn't filled with exotic destinations or wild adventures. It was the desperate accounting of a woman who had run out of options. Make sure my son is born safe. Apologize to my mother for leaving home. Eat real food without checking my bank balance first. Stop being afraid every time someone knocks. Let someone protect me, just once. Her throat tightened on the last line. The loneliness pressed against her chest like a physical weight, making it hard to breathe. She had written it knowing no one would ever read it. A confession whispered into the void. She meant to send it to herself. Or maybe to her sister Keisha back in Atlanta. Anyone who knew her real life, who understood what it meant to be black, pregnant, and invisible in a city that didn't know what to do with either. Exhaustion blurred her vision. The phone felt heavy in her hand. Her fingers, swollen from fluid retention, slipped across the screen. Sent. The word appeared before her brain could process what had happened. The name at the top of the screen was not her sister's. Kang Tai-jun, emergency supplier. Her boss at the import warehouse had added the contact 6 months ago. If shipments go missing or suppliers ghost us, you text this number. He fixes problems fast. Don't use it unless it's urgent. Nia had never used it. Until now. Until her exhausted, terrified fingers had betrayed her completely. The message showed delivered. Nia's blood turned cold. Her hands began to shake so violently she nearly dropped the phone. She tried to recall the message, fingers fumbling over the screen, but the option was grayed out. Delete. Nothing happened. 3 dots appeared at the bottom of the screen. Someone was typing. Her heart slammed against her ribs. The baby kicked hard, sensing her panic, and Nia pressed both hands to her belly as if she could shield him from whatever was about to happen. The dots disappeared. Reappeared. Then a single reply came through, stark and terrifying in its simplicity. Where are you? Nia stared at the screen. For words that felt like a hand closing around her throat. She typed back with shaking fingers. Wrong number. Sorry. The response was immediate. No. It wasn't. Address. Now. A cold sweat broke across her skin. Who was this man? What did he want? Why did his words feel less like a question and more like a command she couldn't refuse? Another message arrived before she could respond. I know you're in Itaewon. Don't make me look harder. Terror spiked through her exhaustion. He knew where she was. Not her exact address, but close enough. Nia's door creaked softly behind her as the wind shifted outside, the building settling into its old bones. She turned her head, pulse racing, half expecting to see a shadow in her doorway. Nothing. But the feeling remained. The sensation of being watched. Hunted. She looked back at her phone, at the message still glowing on the screen, and for the first time since she'd found out she was pregnant, since Jalen had disappeared without a trace, since she'd boarded that plane to Seoul chasing a promise that turned to ash, fear wrapped fully around her throat. And somewhere across the city, in a penthouse she couldn't imagine, a man she'd never met was already moving. Chapter 2. The Man Who Does Not Ask Twice. Kang Tai-jun did not believe in coincidences. He believed in leverage, patterns, and weakness, and how quickly all three revealed themselves under pressure. From the 42nd floor of his Seoul penthouse, he reread the message for the 3rd time, his thumb hovering over the screen as the city sprawled beneath him like a kingdom he'd built brick by bloody brick. Before I die. Not a threat. Not a seduction. Not a scam. A confession. A woman preparing for the end. Tai-jun had buried his own mother after she'd begged the wrong men for mercy. He had been 14, kneeling in dirt that smelled like rain and blood, watching them lower a woman who had once sung him lullabies into the ground. He had learned then what desperation sounded like when it stripped itself bare. This message carried the same weight. The same resignation. The same quiet, terrifying surrender. He stood, setting down the glass of whiskey he hadn't touched, and moved to the floor-to-ceiling windows. His reflection stared back, sharp cheekbones, dark eyes that had seen too much, a mouth that had forgotten how to smile except when necessary for business. At 34, Tai-jun controlled the largest private security and logistics network in Seoul. Legal on paper. Grey in practice. His organization moved goods that couldn't be moved through official channels, protected people who couldn't trust the police, and solved problems that required discretion and, occasionally, force. People called him the Ghost King. Not because he was invisible, but because by the time you realized he was there, it was already too late. He pulled up the contact information attached to the number. The warehouse manager, Mr. Kim, had added it to his emergency supplier list months ago as part of a protection arrangement. Tai-jun's organization ensured Kim's shipments arrived intact. In exchange, Kim provided legitimate business cover and occasional logistical support. The number belonged to an employee. Female. American, based on the area code linked to her profile. He made a call. "Find her," he said when his second-in-command answered on the first ring. "The woman who just texted me. I want her address, her background, and her situation. You have 1 hour. Consider it done." Tai-jun ended the call and returned to the message. "Let someone protect me, just once." Something twisted in his chest. An old wound he thought had scarred over completely. His mother had written something similar in the journal they'd found after her death. "I just wanted someone to say I mattered. That I was worth saving." She had mattered. And he had been too young, too powerless to save her. He would not make that mistake again. By 2:26 a.m., he had the woman's full file. Nia Carter. Age 26. American citizen. 7 months pregnant. Living alone in a 1-bedroom apartment in Itaewon. Employment: part-time warehouse documentation clerk. No family in Korea. No emergency contacts listed. Bank account balance: $247. The photograph showed a woman with warm brown skin, natural hair pulled back, and eyes that looked directly at the camera with a kind of tired defiance that made something in Tai-jun's chest tighten. She was alone. Vulnerable. And she had reached out to him, whether she knew it or not. By 6:04 a.m., his driver was pulling into a quiet, neglected apartment complex on the edge of Itaewon, where the buildings leaned together like old men sharing secrets, and the morning mist curled through alleyways that smelled of garbage and yesterday's rain. Tai-jun stepped out of the black Mercedes, dressed in a perfectly tailored black suit that looked absurdly expensive against the peeling paint and cracked concrete. The morning mist wrapped around him like something alive, and the few early risers on the street quickly looked away. They knew power when they saw it. He climbed the exterior stairs to the 3rd floor, his footsteps echoing in the stairwell. Her apartment was at the end of the corridor, 3C. A faded welcome mat sat outside, the kind that said someone had once cared about making this place feel like home. He knocked once. Slow. Controlled. Inside, Nia froze. She had been sitting at her small kitchen table, staring at a bowl of instant noodles she couldn't afford to waste but didn't have the appetite to eat. The knock made her heart stop. She hadn't heard footsteps. Hadn't heard a car. The knock came again. More deliberate this time. Nia stood slowly, one hand protectively over her stomach. The baby shifted, pressing against her palm as if he could sense her fear. She moved to the door, pulse hammering, and looked through the peephole. A man stood in the hallway. Tall. Expensive suit. Face carved from stone. "Who is it?" Her voice came out smaller than she intended. "You sent me something," he said calmly, his voice carrying through the thin door with disturbing clarity. Her breath caught. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Yes, you do." Silence stretched between them like a wire pulled taut. "Open the door, Nia." The sound of her name in his mouth made her skin prickle. He shouldn't know her name. Shouldn't be here. Shouldn't exist outside the two-dimensional safety of a text message. "Go away," she said, trying to sound firm. "I'll call the police." "You won't." Not a threat. A statement. Because you're here illegally on an expired visa, and the last thing you need is police attention. The air left her lungs. How did he know? I'm not here to hurt you, he continued, his tone softening fractionally. If I were, you wouldn't be standing on the other side of that door having this conversation. That's not comforting. A pause. Then, quietly, it's honest. Something in his voice, a strange, terrible sincerity, made Nia's resolve crack. She unlocked the door but kept the chain on, opening it just enough to see him clearly. He was more intimidating in person. Taller than the peephole suggested. His eyes were dark, unreadable, and when they swept over her, taking in her oversized t-shirt, her swollen belly, the exhaustion carved into every line of her face, she felt stripped bare. You read my message, she whispered. Every word. It was a mistake. No, he replied, his gaze dropping to her stomach. It was the truth. His eyes returned to hers, and for the first time, she saw something beneath the ice. Recognition. Understanding. Pain. And now, he added quietly, his voice carrying the weight of an unbreakable promise, you belong in my line of sight. Chapter 3. Forced Proximity. Nia tried to slam the door. Taijun caught it with one hand. Not rough. Not violent. Effortless. The chain held for exactly 3 seconds before he simply lifted the door off its hinges, not breaking it, just applying pressure until the old screws gave way. Stop, Nia gasped, backing into her apartment, hands raised. Please. He stepped inside and closed what remained of the door behind him, his presence filling the small space like smoke. He didn't move toward her. Didn't crowd her. Just stood there, scanning the apartment with the trained assessment of someone who evaluated threats for a living. Cheap furniture. No food in the visible cabinets. A pile of unpaid bills on the counter. Medical paperwork stacked beside a laptop that looked like it hadn't been new in 5 years. His jaw tightened. How long have you been living like this? That's none of your business. It became my business the moment you sent me that message. Nia's hands clenched into fists. I didn't send it to you. I sent it to myself. It was a mistake. Then why haven't you deleted my number? She opened her mouth. Closed it. Because she hadn't. Because some treacherous part of her, exhausted and afraid, had wanted to see what would happen if someone actually answered. Taijun pulled out his phone and made a call, speaking in rapid Korean. Nia caught only fragments. Secure the building, medical evaluation, relocation, before he ended the call and turned back to her. What did you just do? Panic rose in her throat. I'm moving you. You can't just. I can, he interrupted. And I am. Why? The word came out desperate. Why do you even care? For a long moment, he didn't answer. His eyes held hers, and she saw something flicker behind the ice, something raw and old and painful. Because I know what it looks like when someone is drowning, he said quietly. And I'm tired of watching people go under. Before she could respond, footsteps echoed in the hallway. 3 men appeared in the doorway, professional, efficient, dressed in dark clothing that screamed security. Pack what matters, Taijun said. You have 10 minutes. And if I refuse? His expression didn't change. Then I'll have my men pack for you, and you'll leave with nothing but the clothes on your back. Your choice. It wasn't really a choice. Nia's hands shook as she moved through the apartment, grabbing clothes, documents, the few photographs she'd brought from home. The men worked around her with eerie efficiency, boxing up her life like it weighed nothing. Within 40 minutes, her apartment was empty. She stood in the hallway, clutching a single bag, feeling like she'd just been erased. Taijun waited by the stairs, his expression unreadable. This is kidnapping, she said. This is protection. I didn't ask for protection. You did. He held up his phone, her message still glowing on the screen. You just didn't know you were asking me. The car waiting below was exactly what she expected. Sleek, black, expensive. The kind of vehicle that made people look away rather than risk remembering faces. Nia slid into the back seat, Taijun beside her, and as the car pulled away from the only home she'd known in Seoul, she realized with cold certainty that her life had just been hijacked. She hated him for it. She hated herself more for how safe she suddenly felt. The car moved through Seoul's early morning streets in silence. Nia watched the city wake up through tinted windows, vendors setting up street food carts, businessmen hurrying to subway stations, the organized chaos of a metropolis that had never learned her name. "Where are you taking me?" she finally asked. "Somewhere you won't have to check your bank account before eating." The words hit harder than they should have. She looked at him, really looked at him, and saw something she hadn't expected. Not pity. Not desire. Determination. Like she was a problem he intended to solve whether she wanted solving or not. "I need to call my sister," she said. "Later." "I need to." "Later." His tone left no room for argument. The car turned onto a private road that wound up into the hills overlooking the city. Gates opened automatically. Security cameras tracked their progress. The building that came into view looked less like an apartment complex and more like a fortress disguised as luxury. They stopped in an underground garage. Tae-jun got out first, then offered her his hand. Nia stared at it. "I can walk." "I know you can." He didn't lower his hand. "But you don't have to." Something in his voice made her throat tight. She took his hand. His grip was warm, steady, and when he helped her out of the car, he didn't let go until she was stable on her feet. The elevator ride was silent. 42 floors. Nia watched the numbers climb, each one taking her further from anything familiar. The doors opened directly into a penthouse. Floor-to-ceiling windows. Minimalist furniture. Art that probably cost more than her annual salary. The space was beautiful in the way that things are when they've never known struggle. "The guest room is down that hall," Tae-jun said, gesturing. "Everything you need is already there. Clothes in your size. Toiletries. If something's missing, tell me." "How did you?" "I'm efficient." Nia moved into the apartment slowly, taking in details with the wary assessment of someone who'd learned to always know where the exits were. 3 bedrooms. 2 bathrooms. A kitchen that looked like it had never been used. And everywhere, that sense of controlled power that radiated from Tae-jun like heat. "I can't stay here," she said. "You already are." "I don't even know you." He turned to face her fully. "My name is Kang Tae-jun. I'm 34. I run a private security and logistics firm. I don't drink coffee. I don't sleep more than 4 hours a night. And I've never let anyone I've protected come to harm." "That's not knowing someone. That's a resume." "Then what do you want to know?" "Everything," she wanted to say. "Why you're doing this. What you want from me. Whether I should be more afraid of you or the life I was living before you showed up." Instead, she asked, "What do you want in return?" His expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. "Nothing you're not willing to give." It should have been comforting. It wasn't. Because Nia had learned the hard way that no one did anything without wanting something back. And men like Kang Tae-jun, men with power and money and eyes that saw too much, always collected their debts. She just didn't know yet what currency he'd demand. Chapter 4. The Enemy She Carried. The truth arrived 72 hours later. Nia had spent 3 days in a kind of suspended reality. She slept in a bed too comfortable to trust. Ate food that appeared without her asking. Watched Tae-jun come and go with the efficient precision of someone who treated time like ammunition. He didn't touch her. Didn't ask invasive questions. Didn't hover. But he watched. Always watching. Like she was a puzzle he was methodically solving. On the 3rd night, he came home later than usual. Nia had been sitting in the living room, unable to sleep, staring out at Seoul's glittering skyline and trying to convince herself this was temporary. Tae-jun's footsteps were silent on the marble floor, but she sensed him before she saw him. "You should be sleeping," he said. "So should you." He moved to the bar cart, poured himself a drink he wouldn't finish, and stood by the windows beside her. Close enough that she could smell his cologne, something expensive and understated. "I need to tell you something," he said after a long moment. The tone made her stomach drop. "What?" "The father of your child." He didn't look at her. "What's his name?" Nia's hands instinctively covered her stomach. "Why?" "Answer the question." "Jalen," she said quietly. "Jalen Moore." "Why?" Taijun's jaw tightened. He took a slow breath, like someone preparing to deliver bad news to a terminal patient. 3 years ago, a man named Jalen Moore worked briefly with one of my transport contractors. He was hired to manage a shipment of electronics across the border. The shipment was worth $2 million. Nia's blood went cold. The shipment never arrived, Taijun continued, his voice flat. Jalen disappeared with the merchandise and the advance payment. My organization lost the money, the goods, and the client relationship. We've been looking for him ever since. The room tilted. No, Nia whispered. That's not possible. It's documented. Verified. His photograph is in my files. You're lying. I don't lie. He finally turned to look at her, and his eyes held no satisfaction. Only cold, terrible certainty. You slept with my enemy. Nia stood so fast her vision blurred. The baby kicked hard, and she pressed both hands to her stomach, trying to breathe through the panic rising in her throat. I didn't know, she said. I swear to God, I didn't know who he was. That makes it worse. How does that make it worse? Because it means he used you. Taijun's voice remained calm, but she heard the razor edge beneath it. He knew you were vulnerable. Alone. Easy to manipulate. And when you got pregnant, you became a liability. Stop. He abandoned you because keeping you would have exposed him. I said stop. But Taijun didn't stop. He pulled out his phone and brought up a photograph. Jalen, younger, standing beside a shipping container with 2 other men. The date stamp was 3 years old. It was him. Undeniably him. Nia's legs gave out. She sank onto the couch, her whole body shaking. I should kill him, Taijun said quietly, pocketing his phone. My organization has protocols for theft at that level. Clean. Efficient. He'd disappear, and no one would ask questions. Then why haven't you? His eyes locked onto her stomach. And yet you complicate things. Nia looked up at him, tears burning her eyes. What does that mean? It means, Taijun said slowly, that the child you're carrying is connected to a man who stole from me. Which makes you connected. Which makes this situation. He paused, searching for the word. Problematic. So what are you going to do? Her voice came out hollow. Use me as bait? Leverage? Wait until my son is born and then disappear him? For the first time since she'd met him, Taijun's control cracked. He crossed the room in 2 strides and knelt in front of her, his hands gripping the couch on either side of her hips, not touching her, but caging her in. Listen to me, he said, his voice rough. I protect what's mine. And whether you like it or not, you're mine now. That baby is mine. And if Jalen Moore is stupid enough to show his face anywhere near you, I will end him. But not because of the money. Because he hurt you. The intensity in his eyes was terrifying. And somewhere beneath her fear, something else stirred. Something dangerous. Because she was starting to understand what she'd seen in his eyes that first morning. Not pity. Possession. I'm not yours, she whispered. Yes, Taijun said softly, his gaze never leaving hers. You are. And God help her, she didn't argue. Chapter 5. Betrayal tastes like safety. Days bled into weeks. Nia learned the rhythm of Taijun's life. The early morning calls in Korean she couldn't understand, the late nights when he returned smelling like rain and something darker, the way he checked on her before he left and after he returned like she was a wound he was monitoring for infection. She learned he took his coffee black. That he read financial reports at breakfast. That he had a scar on his left hand from a knife fight he never talked about. That he looked at her stomach with something close to reverence when he thought she wasn't watching. The penthouse became less of a prison and more of a refuge. Luxury she didn't trust but couldn't deny she needed. Soft sheets. Warm showers. Food that didn't come from convenience stores. And the strange, unsettling comfort of knowing someone was between her and the world. Taijun never touched her. Never pushed. Never demanded. But his presence was constant, a shadow that protected and suffocated in equal measure. He hired a private obstetrician who made house calls. Your blood pressure is elevated, Dr. Han said during one visit, frowning at her chart. Stress-related, most likely. You need rest. Peace. Nia almost laughed. Peace. In a penthouse owned by a man who solved problems with violence. But the baby was healthy. Growing. Strong. And that was all that mattered. One evening, Tai-jun came home earlier than usual and found her in the kitchen, attempting to cook something that resembled her grandmother's gumbo. "What is that?" he asked, setting down his briefcase. "Dinner. Or a failed attempt at one." He moved closer, watching her stir the pot with more curiosity than judgment. "It smells good." "You're lying." "I don't lie." She glanced at him, and for a moment, the walls between them felt thinner. "Taste it," she challenged. He picked up a spoon, dipped it into the pot, and tasted carefully. His expression remained neutral. "Well, it's..." He paused. "Enthusiastic." Nia burst out laughing, the first real laugh since she'd arrived. "That's a polite way of saying terrible." "I didn't say terrible. I said enthusiastic." "Same thing." A ghost of a smile touched his mouth. "Add more salt. And whatever that spice is in the cabinet." "You mean cayenne?" "Yes. More of that." They worked together in companionable silence, and for a few precious minutes, Nia forgot she was a prisoner in a gilded cage. She forgot that the man beside her had threatened to kill her baby's father. She forgot that everything in her life was held together by his control, and could shatter the moment he decided she was no longer worth protecting. She just existed. Safe. Warm. Almost content. The illusion shattered 2 days later. Nia was in the guest room, folding baby clothes that Tai-jun's assistant had delivered, soft blues and greens, tiny socks that made her throat tight, when she heard the voices. Tai-jun's office door was open. 2 men speaking in rapid Korean. She caught fragments, more, location, extraction, before Tai-jun's voice cut through, cold and final. "Find him. Bring him to me. Alive." Nia's hands froze. They'd found Jalen. She should have felt relieved. Vindicated. Maybe even glad that the man who'd abandoned her would finally face consequences. Instead, she felt sick. Because whatever Tai-jun planned to do to Jalen, it wouldn't be quick. And it wouldn't be merciful. That night, she couldn't sleep. She sat in the living room, staring at the city lights, one hand on her stomach. Tai-jun found her there at 2 a.m. "You should be resting." "I heard you," she said without looking at him. "You found him." Silence. "What are you going to do? What needs to be done?" "That's not an answer." "It's the only answer you're getting." Nia turned to face him. "If you kill him, what does that make you?" "Justified." "What does it make me?" That stopped him. "What do you mean?" "If you kill my baby's father because of me, what does that make me? His executioner? His judge?" Her voice cracked. "I didn't ask for this. I didn't ask you to find him. I didn't ask you to." "To what?" Tai-jun moved closer, his eyes burning. "To care? To protect you? To make sure you never have to be afraid again?" "Yes." The word tore out of her. "Because every time you protect me, I owe you more. Every time you solve my problems, I lose more of myself. And one day, I'll wake up and realize I'm not Nia anymore. I'm just yours." The word hung between them, heavy and damning. "Would that be so terrible?" he asked quietly. "Yes," she whispered. "Because you don't choose to be owned. And I've already lost enough." For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then Tai-jun's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his expression hardening. "He's here," he said. "In Seoul. My men are moving to intercept." "Don't. This isn't negotiable. Please." Nia stood, crossing to him. "Please don't do this. Not for me. Not because of me." "Then who should I do it for?" His voice was razor-edged. "Him? The man who stole from me and abandoned you? The man who left you starving in a city that doesn't care if you disappear?" "Do it for yourself," she said desperately. "Do it because you chose to. Not because I exist. Something flickered in his eyes. Pain. Recognition. He looked at her like she'd just exposed something he'd spent years hiding. You think that's what this is? He asked. You think I'm using you as an excuse? Aren't you? No. He cupped her face with both hands, forcing her to meet his eyes. I'm using you as a reason. There's a difference. Before she could respond, his phone buzzed again. He looked at it. His jaw tightened. They have him. Nia's heart stopped. Tae-jun. Go to bed, he said, already moving toward the door. This doesn't concern you anymore. Everything you do concerns me. He stopped in the doorway, his back to her. Then pray I don't do what I want to do, he said quietly. Because what I want is to make him suffer for every night you cried alone. For every meal you skipped. For every moment you were afraid. The door closed behind him. And Nia stood in the empty penthouse, hands pressed to her stomach, knowing that somewhere in the city, the father of her child was about to learn what it meant to cross Kang Tae-jun. She should have felt protected. Instead, she felt complicit. And the worst part was, she didn't know if she wanted Tae-jun to stop. Chapter 6. When the past comes begging. Jalen Moore looked exactly as Nia remembered, handsome in that careless way that had first attracted her, with warm brown skin, easy smile, and eyes that had once made promises he never intended to keep. Except now, those eyes were filled with terror. He sat in a chair in one of Tae-jun's secondary offices, not the penthouse, somewhere industrial and cold, with two of Tae-jun's men flanking him like sentries. Tae-jun stood by the window, hands in his pockets, watching the sunrise paint Seoul in shades of gold. You know why you're here, Tae-jun said without turning around. Look, man, I don't know what you think I did. $2 million. 3 years ago. You worked for one of my contractors. The shipment disappeared. So did you. Jalen's face went pale. That wasn't. I didn't. You did. Tae-jun finally turned, and his expression was colder than Jalen had ever seen on a human face. I have documentation. Photographs. Wire transfers. You stole from me. I can pay it back. With what? You're broke. Your family cut you off. You've been running from debt collectors for 18 months. Jalen's mouth opened and closed uselessly. But that's not why you're here, Tae-jun continued, moving closer. You're here because of Nia Carter. At the sound of her name, Jalen's expression shifted. Guilt, shame, something that might have been regret if Tae-jun believed he was capable of it. She told you. She didn't have to. I investigate everything that enters my life. She's pregnant, Jalen said desperately. With my kid. You can't just. Your kid. Tae-jun's voice dropped to something dangerous. The child you abandoned the moment you found out she was pregnant. The woman you left alone, broke, and terrified in a foreign country. That's what you're claiming. I was scared. You were selfish. Tae-jun pulled out his phone and brought up a photograph. Nia, 7 months pregnant, exhausted, standing in her old apartment with hollowed-out eyes. That's what your fear looked like, Tae-jun said quietly. A woman choosing between prenatal vitamins and food. A woman working herself into premature labor because she had no other options. A woman so desperate she accidentally sent her bucket list to a stranger. Jalen looked away, unable to hold Tae-jun's gaze. You want to know what I should do to you? Tae-jun asked. What my organization does to thieves and cowards. Jalen nodded weakly. I should make you disappear. Quietly. Efficiently. No one would ask questions. Your family certainly wouldn't. Tae-jun leaned against the desk. But I won't. Hope flickered in Jalen's eyes. Not because you deserve mercy, but because she asked me not to. The hope died. Nia. She asked me to spare you. Tae-jun's voice carried disgust. Not because she loves you. Not because she wants you back. But because she doesn't want your death on her conscience. That's the difference between you and her. You run from responsibility. She carries it even when it's not hers to bear. Jalen's head dropped. So here's what's going to happen, Tae-jun continued. You're going to leave Seoul. Tonight. My men will escort you to the airport. You'll board a flight to anywhere that isn't here. And you will never contact Nia again. Not when the baby is born. Not on birthdays. Not ever. But my son is not your son. The words were final. You gave up that right when you disappeared. He will grow up knowing his mother fought for him. That's more than you ever gave him. And if I refuse? Tai-jun smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. Then I stop being merciful. And you learn exactly what happens to people who hurt what's mine. The threat hung in the air like smoke. Jalen nodded slowly, defeated. One more thing, Tai-jun said as his men moved to escort Jalen out. If you ever come near her again, if you ever try to claim that child, if you even speak her name. He paused. I will finish what I started. And I won't be quick about it. Jalen was gone within the hour. Tai-jun stood alone in the office, staring at his phone, at the photograph of Nia he'd used to break Jalen's resolve. He should feel satisfied, vindicated. Instead, he felt hollow. Because he'd seen the way Nia looked at him after he'd told her about Jalen. The way she'd pulled back, recognizing the violence beneath his protection. She was right to be afraid. Not of what he'd do to her, but of what he'd do for her. And how much of himself he'd sacrifice to keep her safe. When Tai-jun returned to the penthouse as dawn broke over Seoul, he found Nia sitting in the same spot he'd left her, still awake, eyes red from crying. It's done, he said quietly. She looked up. Did you kill him? No. Relief flooded her face, quickly followed by suspicion. Why not? Because you asked me not to. That's it? That's the only reason. That's reason enough. Nia stood slowly, crossing to him. She searched his face, looking for the monster she'd convinced herself lived beneath the surface. She didn't find it. She found exhaustion. And something that looked almost like regret. What did you do to him? She asked softly. I sent him away. Told him never to come back. If he does. Tai-jun's jaw tightened. Then I won't be merciful. Thank you. The words seemed to surprise them both. For what? He asked. For listening. For not. She touched her stomach. For thinking about what I needed instead of what you wanted. Don't thank me for the bare minimum. In my experience, the bare minimum is more than most people give. Something passed between them in that moment, an understanding, a shift, the first real foundation of trust they'd built without coercion or fear. Tai-jun reached out slowly, telegraphing his intention, and placed his hand on her stomach. The baby kicked. A strong, defiant movement against his palm. Tai-jun's breath caught. His eyes met Nia's, and she saw raw wonder there. He knows you, she whispered. I hope so, Tai-jun said quietly. Because I'm not going anywhere. For the first time since the night she'd sent that message, Nia believed him. Chapter 7. The Breaking Point. 3 weeks of fragile peace shattered on a Tuesday morning. Nia woke to find Tai-jun already dressed, standing by the window with his phone pressed to his ear, speaking in the clipped, dangerous tone she'd learned meant trouble. She'd started to recognize his different voices. The smooth negotiator. The cold enforcer. The careful protector. This was something else. This was fury barely contained. He ended the call and turned to find her watching. What's wrong? She asked, pushing herself upright. At 8 months pregnant, everything was harder. Moving, breathing, thinking past the constant weight of the baby. My brother is being an idiot. You have a brother? Tai-jun's expression darkened. Unfortunately. Before she could ask more, the penthouse door opened without a knock, and a man strode in with the casual arrogance of someone who'd never been denied anything. He was younger than Tai-jun, maybe early 30s, handsome in a softer way, with expensive clothes and eyes that tracked over Nia with undisguised calculation. So this is her, the man said in English, his accent American educated. The pregnant charity case that's got my brother playing savior. Nia's spine straightened. Excuse me. Kang Minute J, Tai-jun said, his voice deadly quiet. Get out. No. Minute J moved further into the apartment, circling Nia like she was an exhibit. I think I'll stay. See what's so special about her that you're willing to risk everything we've built. A risk? Nia looked between them. What is he talking about? He's talking about the fact that our father is furious, Minute J said, smiling coldly. That our business partners are nervous. That our reputation is taking hits because the great Kang Tai-jun has gone soft over some American girl who accidentally texted him. Each word was designed to wound. It worked. Minute J, Tai-jun warned. What? I'm just saying what everyone's thinking. She trapped you. Probably not even an accident. That text. Probably calculated. Poor, pregnant, alone. Perfect bait for a man with a savior complex. That's not. Nia started. How much is she costing you? Financially, politically, reputation-wise. Minute J turned to Tai-jun. Father wants you at the office. Today. To explain why you're jeopardizing our family's standing for. He gestured dismissively at Nia. This. The word this hung in the air like a slap. Tai-jun moved with frightening speed, crossing the room and gripping Minute J by the throat, slamming him against the wall. Call her this again, Tai-jun said, his voice ice-cold, and you'll need surgery to repair your face. Minute J's eyes widened in genuine fear. She is under my protection, Tai-jun continued. Which means she is under our family's protection. And if you ever disrespect her again, brother or not, I will end you. Are we clear? Minute J nodded frantically. Tai-jun released him, and Minute J stumbled toward the door, coughing. Father won't forget this, Minute J gasped. Good. Make sure he doesn't. When the door slammed, silence filled the penthouse. Nia sat frozen on the couch, hands pressed to her stomach, processing what she'd just witnessed. I'm sorry, Tai-jun said quietly, not turning around. He had no right. He's right, though. No, he's not. Yes, he is. Nia stood slowly. I'm costing you. Your reputation. Your family. Your business. Everything. You're not. Don't lie to me. The words erupted from her. I'm not stupid, Tai-jun. I know what this looks like. I know what people think. Poor black girl. Rich Korean man. It's a setup. A con. And everyone around you is waiting for you to realize it. I don't care what they think. But I do. Tears burned her eyes. I care that your brother looks at me like I'm garbage. I care that your father is angry. I care that I'm destroying everything you built because I was too tired to check who I was texting. Nia. I'm leaving. The words dropped like stones. Tai-jun froze. What? I'm leaving. Today. I'll go back to my old apartment. Find a new job. You can forget about me. Forget about all of this. Like hell. You don't get to decide. Yes, Tai-jun said, finally turning to face her, I do. Because you're not capable of making rational decisions right now. The condescension in his voice ignited something in Nia. I'm not capable. Her laugh was bitter. You've been making decisions for me since the moment you showed up at my door. Where I live. What I eat. Who I see. You've controlled every aspect of my life, and now you're telling me I'm not capable of deciding for myself. That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? Silence. You meant exactly what your brother said, Nia continued, her voice breaking. I'm a charity case. A project. Something broken you're trying to fix because it makes you feel better about your sister. Tai-jun's face went white. Don't, he said quietly. Why not? It's true, isn't it? You saw me, and you saw her. And you thought, here's my second chance. Here's how I save someone this time. Tears streamed down her face. But I'm not her, Tai-jun. I'm not your redemption. You think that's what this is? What else could it be? Love. The word exploded from him. It's love, Nia. Messy, complicated, completely insane love. And yes, it started as something else. Yes, I saw my sister in you. But somewhere between that first morning and now, it became about you. Just you. Nia stared at him, unable to process the raw emotion in his voice. I love you, Tai-jun continued, moving closer. I love your stubbornness. I love how you cook terrible food and laugh when I try to eat it. I love how you talk to your baby when you think I'm not listening. I love that you're brave enough to call me out when I'm being controlling. I love you, and I'm terrified because I don't know how to do this without being what I am. And what are you? She whispered. Someone who protects the people he loves by controlling everything around them. Someone who fixes problems with power and money because he doesn't know how else to keep people safe. His voice cracked. Someone who is so afraid of failing you that he's pushing you away. The admission hung between them, raw and devastating. I can't stay here, Nia said quietly. Not like this. Not when every time I look at you, I wonder if you're with me because you want to be or because you feel obligated. Obligated. To the baby. To your guilt. To whatever promise you made to your sister's memory. Tai-jun closed his eyes. When he opened them, they were burning. Then go, he said. If that's what you think, then leave. I won't stop you. You mean that? No. The word was raw. But I'll do it anyway. Because you're right about one thing, you deserve a choice. And I've taken too many choices from you already. He pulled out his phone, made a call. Prepare a car. And an apartment in Itaewon. Fully furnished. Under Nia Carter's name. Tai-jun. You'll have money. Enough for medical expenses and the baby. No strings. No contact unless you initiate it. He wouldn't look at her. You'll be safe. I'll make sure of it. But you won't see me again. The finality in his voice made her chest ache. Just like that. No. He finally met her eyes. Not just like that. This is the hardest thing I've ever done. Harder than burying my mother. Harder than living with my sister's death. Because this time, I'm choosing to let go instead of holding on too tight. And if I go, that's it? You just move on. I'll make sure you and the baby are protected for the rest of your lives. But yes, that's it. Nia pressed both hands to her stomach, feeling the baby kick as if sensing her distress. I need time, she said finally. To think. To figure out what I want without you deciding for me. How much time? I don't know. Then take it. He moved to his office, pulled out a folder. Everything you need is in here. Apartment lease. Bank account with enough money for a year. Medical contacts. If you need more, call my assistant. Not you. No. The word was barely audible. Not me. Because if I see you again, I won't be able to let you go a second time. He handed her the folder, his fingers brushing hers. The contact was electric. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Tai-jun stepped back, breaking the connection. The car is waiting downstairs, he said. Nia looked around the penthouse, the space that had become home despite everything. Then she looked at Tai-jun, seeing him clearly for the first time. Not a monster. Not a savior. Just a man, terrified and broken and desperately in love. Thank you, she whispered. For what? For letting me choose. She left without looking back, one hand pressed to her stomach, tears streaming down her face. Behind her, Tai-jun stood alone in the empty penthouse, hands clenched into fists, watching the woman he loved walk away because loving her meant letting her go. The apartment he'd arranged was exactly what she needed. Small, safe, hers. But that night, lying in a bed that felt too empty, Nia wondered if she'd just made the biggest mistake of her life. Because for the first time since she'd been pregnant, she felt completely, devastatingly alone. And she realized with cold clarity that safety wasn't the same thing as home. Chapter 8. Labor and Reckoning. 5 days passed like years. Nia settled into the new apartment with mechanical efficiency, unpacking clothes, organizing the nursery space that Tai-jun had apparently prepared before she'd even arrived. The refrigerator was stocked. The utilities paid. Money appeared in her account with ruthless regularity. He was keeping his promise. Protecting her from a distance. It should have felt like freedom. Instead, it felt like abandonment, and she hated herself for it. She hated that she missed him. Missed his quiet presence in the morning. Missed the way he'd check on her before leaving for work, his hand hovering over her stomach like he was afraid to fully connect but couldn't help himself. Missed the safety she'd claimed to resent. On the 6th day, at 3 a.m., the pain started. Sharp. Insistent. Too early. Nia tried to breathe through it, convincing herself it was Braxton Hicks contractions. False labor. Nothing to worry about. Then her water broke. 8 months. Too early. Dangerous. She grabbed her phone with shaking hands, dialed emergency services, gave her address through gritted teeth as another contraction ripped through her. The operator stayed on the line. Ambulance is 7 minutes away. Stay calm. Is there anyone who can be with you? Nia's thumb hovered over Taijun's number. She'd deleted it. No, that was a lie. She'd moved it to a folder labeled Don't, which was basically the same thing as keeping it. Another contraction hit, and her vision blurred. The baby was coming. Too soon. Too small. And she was alone. Her finger pressed the number before her brain could stop her. It rang once. Nia. Taijun's voice came through immediately, alert despite the hour. What's wrong? Baby, she gasped. Coming. Ambulance, 7 minutes. I'm 15 minutes away. Hold on. Taijun. I said hold on. The call didn't end. She heard him shouting in Korean, orders, addresses, the sound of a car door slamming. Then his voice returned, closer to the phone. Talk to me, he said. Stay with me. It hurts. I know it does. But you're strong. The strongest person I've ever met. I'm scared. So am I. The admission was raw. But I'm coming. And I won't let anything happen to you. To either of you. Sirens wailed in the distance. Ambulance is here, she whispered. Tell them to wait for me at the hospital. Seoul National. I'll be there before they finish intake. How? Because I'm driving like death itself is chasing me. And nothing will stop me from being there. The EMTs burst through her door. Professional, efficient, loading her onto a stretcher while she clutched the phone like a lifeline. I have to go, she said. I'll see you soon, Taijun replied. I promise. The ambulance ride was a blur of pain and fear. Monitors beeping. Hands checking her vitals. Korean voices speaking too fast for her to follow. Baby's heart rate dropping with contractions. Someone said in English for her benefit. We need to prepare for emergency cesarean. Terror seized her. No. Wait. Please. Miss Carter, we need to do what's safest for you and the baby. At Seoul National Hospital, chaos erupted the moment they wheeled her through the emergency entrance. Doctors. Nurses. Forms she couldn't focus on. And then, impossibly, Taijun was there. He'd made it in 12 minutes, his suit jacket missing, shirt partially unbuttoned, hair disheveled, looking more undone than she'd ever seen him. I'm here, he said, gripping her hand as they moved her to an operating room. I'm right here. You shouldn't. I'm not leaving. Family only, a nurse said sharply in Korean. Taijun responded in the same language, his tone brooking no argument. Whatever he said made the nurse step back immediately. Later, Nia would learn he'd told them he was the baby's father. Later, she'd learn he'd called in every favor he had to ensure she got the best surgical team in Seoul. Later, she'd learn he'd sat outside the operating room with his head in his hands, praying to gods he didn't believe in. But right then, as they prepped her for emergency surgery, all she knew was his hand in hers, his voice in her ear, his presence the only thing keeping her from shattering completely. Count backward from 10, the anesthesiologist said. 10, Nia whispered, looking at Taijun. 9. His eyes held hers. 8. You're going to be fine, he said. 7. 6. The world blurred. I love you, she heard herself say, or maybe thought, she couldn't tell. And then darkness took her. When Nia woke, the first thing she registered was pain, deep, surgical pain that told her the baby was out. The second thing was silence. Terrible, aching silence where a baby's cry should be. She tried to sit up, panic flooding her system. Easy, Taijun's voice came from beside the bed. Don't move. She turned her head and found him sitting in a chair pulled close, his hand wrapped around hers, his face haggard with exhaustion and something that looked like grief. The baby, she whispered. Where's my baby? He's in the NICU, Taijun said quietly. He's small. 3 pounds. But he's breathing on his own. He's alive. Yes. Taijun's voice cracked. He's alive, Nia. He's fighting. Relief hit her so hard she started crying, deep, heaving sobs that hurt her incision but she couldn't stop. Taijun stood, carefully sitting on the edge of her bed, gathering her as close as he could without hurting her surgical sight. I've got you, he murmured into her hair. I've got you both. You're safe. He's safe. I want to see him. Soon. The doctors want you to stabilize first. Now. There was no arguing with her tone. Taijun called the nurse, and within minutes, they had her in a wheelchair, for stand attached, moving through sterile hospital corridors to the neonatal intensive care unit. The NICU was all soft lights and quiet beeping, a room full of miracles and fears fighting for survival. Their son, and Nia's brain snagged on the word there, but she was too exhausted to examine it, lay in an incubator, so small he looked impossible. Impossibly small. Impossibly perfect. Dark skin like hers. Taijun's serious expression even in sleep. Tiny fingers curled into fists like he was already preparing to fight the world. He's beautiful, Nia whispered. He's a fighter, Taijun said. Like his mother. A nurse approached, smiling. You can touch him through the ports if you want. Nia's hands were shaking as she slipped them through the openings, placing one finger in her son's palm. Immediately, impossibly, his tiny fingers wrapped around hers. The grip was weak but determined. And Nia felt her heart crack open completely. Hey, baby, she whispered. Hey, my beautiful boy. I'm here. Mama's here. Beside her, Taijun placed his hand through the other port, his large hand looking absurdly huge next to the tiny infant. The baby's other hand found Taijun's finger, gripping with the same determination. Something in Taijun's expression shattered and reformed. He's holding on, Taijun said, his voice thick. To both of us. And in that moment, standing in the NICU surrounded by the sound of machines keeping fragile lives stable, Nia understood something she'd been too afraid to admit. This wasn't about redemption or guilt or second chances. This was about choice. Taijun had chosen her. Chosen them. Even when she'd pushed him away, even when his family protested, even when it cost him. He'd chosen them. And maybe, just maybe, it was time she chose him back. He needs a name, she said quietly. Taijun looked at her. You should choose. No. Nia met his eyes. We should choose. Together. The word we hung in the air between them, fragile and enormous. Together, Taijun repeated softly, like he was testing the word. If you want, Nia added. If you still. Yes. He didn't let her finish. Yes, I want. I want everything with you. If you'll have me. Even though I'm stubborn and push you away and make your life complicated. Especially because of that. A small smile touched her lips. You're insane. I know. They stood in silence, both their hands connected to this tiny life who'd brought them together through pure accident and kept them together through pure will. Kai, Nia said finally. It means warrior in Hawaiian. And... She hesitated. June. For you. Taijun's breath caught. Kai June Carter. Or Kang. If you, if we. She couldn't finish the sentence. Kai June Carter Kang, Taijun said firmly. Both names. Both families. Both choices. Nia's eyes filled with tears again. Is that a yes? He asked softly. To what? To us. To choosing each other. To building something that's terrifying and complicated and worth every risk. She looked at their son, at this impossible miracle fighting to breathe, and then at the man who'd shown up in the dark, who'd kept his promises even when it cost him, who'd loved her not despite her resistance but because of her strength. Yes, she whispered. I choose you. I choose us. Taijun leaned his forehead against hers, careful not to disturb her 4 lines. I promise you, he said quietly, I will spend every day proving you didn't choose wrong. I know. And in the NICU, under fluorescent lights with their son fighting for his life between them, Nia Carter and Kang Taijun became a family not through accident or obligation, but through the hardest, bravest thing either of them had ever done. Choosing to be chosen. Chapter 9. The Family You Build. Kai spent 17 days in the NICU. 17 days of progress and setbacks, of learning to breathe stronger, to eat better, to grow into the fighter they knew he would be. 17 days of Nia and Taijun taking turns sitting beside his incubator, reading to him, singing to him, promising him a world he would one day take by storm. On day 18, the doctors cleared him to go home. Home was no longer the penthouse. Taijun had bought a house while Kai was in the hospital, a traditional hanok in Bukshan, renovated with modern security but keeping the elegant bones of Korean architecture. You bought a house? Nia asked when he showed her the photos. I bought a home, he corrected. Big enough for a family. With a courtyard where Kai can play. Near good schools. And, he hesitated. If it's not what you want, we'll find something else. It's perfect, she said, and meant it. Moving in was chaos. Nia's minimal belongings mixed with Taijun's expensive but sparse furniture. Baby equipment appeared seemingly overnight. Crib, changing table, monitors, bottles, an entire room dedicated to keeping one tiny human alive. Taijun hired a night nurse for the first month. I can do it myself, Nia protested. I know you can. But you don't have to. She was learning to accept help without feeling like she was losing herself. It was harder than any other lesson she'd learned. The first night home with Kai was terrifying. Nia checked on him every 20 minutes despite the monitor showing his breath, his heartbeat, his every movement. At 2 a.m., she found Taijun sitting beside the crib, watching Kai sleep with an expression of such fierce protectiveness it made her throat tight. Can't sleep? She asked. Can't stop watching him, Taijun admitted. Every time I close my eyes, I remember the NICU. The monitors. How small he was. Nia sat beside him, her shoulder pressing against his. He's okay now, she said. We're okay. I know, but I keep thinking. He paused. What if I mess this up? What if I'm too controlling or too distant or too much like my father? Then I'll tell you, Nia said simply. Just like I've been telling you. He looked at her, something close to wonder in his eyes. How are you so calm about this? I'm not, she admitted. I'm terrified every second. But I have you. And that makes the fear bearable. Taijun took her hand, pressing it to his lips. I don't deserve you. Probably not, she agreed, smiling. But you're stuck with me anyway. Good. Meeting Taijun's family was inevitable. His father, Kang Dae-jung, arrived 3 weeks after they brought Kai home. Nia had been dreading it, imagining judgment, rejection, the cold assessment of a woman who didn't fit their world. Instead, she got something unexpected. Kang Dae-jung was in his 60s, with silver hair and the same intense eyes as his son. He stood in their living room holding an elaborately wrapped gift, looking uncomfortable in his expensive suit. Miss Carter, he said in careful English. I apologize for taking so long to visit. You don't need to apologize, Nia said. I do. He set down the gift. My son told me you believed I disapproved of you. That is my fault. I should have come sooner. Should have said sooner that. He paused, seeming to gather words. You saved my son. Nia blinked. I'm sorry. After his sister died, Taijun became cold. Efficient. Dangerous in the way that people are when they stop caring about anything but work. Dae-jung's voice was rough. I watched him disappear into himself, and I did not know how to reach him. Then you appeared. And he became alive again. I don't think. You reminded him what it means to care about someone more than control. That is a gift I cannot repay. Dae-jung bowed deeply, a gesture of profound respect. Thank you for bringing my son back to me. Nia's eyes burned with tears. And, Dae-jung continued, straightening, May I meet my grandson? Kai was asleep in his nursery, swaddled in the traditional Korean blanket Taejun's mother had made before she died, one of the few things Taejun had kept. Daejung looked at the baby with an expression Nia recognized. The same fierce protectiveness Taejun wore. He has your strength, Daejung said to Nia. And my son's determination. He will do great things. Or just be happy, Nia said. That would be enough. Daejung smiled, the first real smile she'd seen from him. Yes. That would be enough. The family gift was a jade pendant, traditional, expensive, meant to bring protection and good fortune. It was my wife's, Daejung explained. She wore it when Taejun was born. I would like Kai to have it. The gesture broke something in Nia's chest. I would be honored, she said. Taejun appeared in the doorway, watching his father and the woman he loved standing over his son, and felt something settle in his chest. Peace. For the first time in 7 years, he felt at peace. Minute J's apology came next. It was awkward, stumbling, everything an apology from a man who wasn't used to being wrong should be. I was an asshole, Minute J said, standing in their living room like a teenager called to the principal's office. I judged you before knowing you. I assumed the worst because... He paused. Because I was jealous. Nia frowned. Of what? Of how easily Taejun chose you. How completely. I've never. Minute J looked away. I've never seen him care about anything the way he cares about you. And it scared me because it meant you could hurt him. Badly. I could, Nia agreed. But I won't. I know that now. Minute J finally met her eyes. I see how you look at him. At Kai. You're not using him. You love him. Yes. Then I'm sorry. For what I said. How I treated you. And I'd like. He hesitated. I'd like to be part of Kai's life. As his uncle. If you'll let me. Nia glanced at Taejun, who stood behind her, silent but supportive. Yes, she said. On one condition. Anything. You stop treating me like I'm fragile. I don't need protection from you. I need respect. Minute J smiled. I think I can do that. Family, Nia was learning, wasn't just blood. It was choice. And forgiveness. And showing up even when it was hard. 6 months after Kai was born, on a quiet morning in their courtyard with cherry blossoms falling like snow, Taejun asked her to marry him. Properly this time. No emergency. No crisis. Just the two of them and Kai sleeping in his carrier, the morning sun turning everything gold. I know we've done everything backward, Tai.